Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Fish News. So my name is Lou and this is our little fish news segment talking mostly about fish news, freshwater aquarium fish hobby news and UK aquarium hobby news in particular, but also various aspects around the world. So I can't remember what episode we're on now. We've done a couple of these now, but it is now the end of August. So it's time for another little update, and I've got a couple of sort of like species updates, a couple of conservation updates, and then a couple of things just sort of like general fish updates as well. Starting off with quite a major one that has happened. It started at the beginning of the month actually, but basically there's a new study has gone into freshwater and brackish and marine puffers, particularly in South America. Now, today we have some serious Greek, Latin, ancient words to try and pronounce. So please do bear with me. I've had a little bit of practice, but some of these are a right mouthful. So basically, the genus Colomesus, so some of you, probably the most sort of familiar one to you lot, the most familiar one would be the bumblebee puffer, Colomesus asellus, which are the Amazon puffers, bumblebee puffers, which are a relatively chill puffer as far as they go, and they can be kept in full freshwater. A lot of them, like the figure eights and that kind of thing, ideally need to be on brackish. So anyway, they discovered this new species of puffer, and the study basically aimed to trace the line, sort of the lineage back as far as possible. So they've basically proposed now that the genus Colomesus needs to be transferred over to Spheroides. I'm really sorry if I'm making a hash of that, but I'm seeing it as Spheroides. So yeah, this species was basically like a missing link. So Spheroides camila is the species. That's its new name. It was previously known as Spheroides spengleri. It's a Brazilian marine species. But basically, this means that a lot of key species in the aquarium hobby are now going to have new scientific names. So instead of them being Colomesus, they're all going to be Spheroides now. Spheroides. So Colomesus asellus, the bumblebee puffer or the Amazon puffer, is now Spheroides asellus comnov. The banded puffer was Colomesus stachys. Is now Spheroides stachys. Oh my goodness, that's so difficult to say. It's got a PSI at the beginning of it, so it's like stachys. Comnov. And then the Tucantinensis comnov as well. So these have all been transferred over to Spheroides because of new research being able to trace their lineage back further than before, and they've now been identified that they need to come under this sort of catch-all name for the genus. Now that comnov thing that I'm saying at the end, also probably making a hash of it, that basically means combinatio nova in Latin, which means new combination. So if a species is given a new name, or it's given a new sort of combination of existing names, that's what they use, just to sort of signpost that that is the new name. So they're going to be comnov for a little while, especially just in terms of the paper. Personally, Colomesus is a lot easier to say. Obviously, I can completely understand why they've done it, and it's really, really important research. It's really, really cool to know, you know, how these things trace back and how these different fish have evolved. It can only help awareness and, you know, help further studies into the genus. However, Spheroides is a lot more difficult to say than Colomesus. And I think, especially because pufferfish enthusiasts, generally, because they're sort of species only and they're very, very particular about their care, a lot of people who keep pufferfish very seriously are probably going to take a little while to get their head around that. It's kind of like if we suddenly decided that Ancestris were going to be called something completely different that I can't think of a random name off the top of my head. But it's as if we suddenly decided in the Pleco world to change Ancestris into something that sounded completely different. All of a sudden, all of us would be like, whoa, I want to say Ancestris, but it's not. It happened a while ago with the Vieja family. So Vieja got sort of like split up, and you ended up with things like the Mascareras argenteus, used to be Vieja ivantea. It happens a lot because of different classifications and further research, unlocking things further in that sort of genus as we expand our knowledge, which is really cool. So, Polymesis is now Spheroides in terms of pufferfish. So, back home in the UK, a little bit further away from Brazil, at the start of this month, we almost, now I didn't even know that we had this here, but we almost lost about 50% of a Goodeid population. So Goodeids are a type of live bearer, Goodeids, and there is a place down in Somerset called Aquarium Zoo. It's in West Somerset, and it hosts a huge range of like really rare live bearers. So they have specifically the Mexican Goodeid and the Monterey Platy, but they also have lots of other ones there as well. Sounds like a really cool place that I want to go visit, actually. It's a bit of a trek. Basically, there was some building works going on a couple of roads over, and a digger hit the water mains, and it was very, very hit and miss. Now, there's not very many details given as to why this affected the fish as much as it did, but the owner of the shop basically said that without the fresh water supply, they could have easily lost the fish very, very quickly, sort of overnight. Now, I'm going to assume here that that means that they're all on some sort of automatic water change system, or it's not even really conventionally filtered and the whole thing is on like a constant feedback, so there's constantly water draining out of it and constantly water draining in via the mains, probably via an autodoser. Could be the whole thing's all in one system, I just don't know. Basically, this water main's being cut. You never know with these things, because like dirt and stuff could have got in there when the water mains was cut. You don't know what sort of building work they were doing. You've got no idea what sort of stuff was on the outside of that digger bucket when it went down into the water mains. So it could have been easily that contaminants were then pumped into the systems. Could be that they're not conventionally filtered, so the tanks aren't actually cycled. So without that constant exchange of fresh water, the ammonia starts to build up. Now, live bearers are generally pretty hardy. I don't have very much experience with more rare live bearers though. I've never kept Goodeids aside from looking after them in a shop setting. But it does sound like a really, really interesting place to go visit. I'll pop a couple of pictures up. But yeah, let me know down below if you guys are local to there, if you've been there. I'd love to hear more about that. But luckily, the population of these very, very critically endangered or maybe extinct in the wild species were absolutely fine, and critical disaster was averted. But it does make you think, like, that was a really, really small fluke incident. But if 50% of the entire world's population of fish are at this specific aquarium, what does happen if something goes wrong? So maybe it's a matter that there needs to be sort of like backup, sort of conservation tanks or something with other people for these types of species, so that if a disaster does happen, that we've got backups, because it could potentially be very limiting for repopulating or, you know, being able to help endangered species, particularly in the future if we want to like repopulate wild habitats. It could be a bit problematic if one single sort of isolated fluke incident can wipe out the whole lot. Maybe something to think about with your aquariums as well. Is there anything, you know, that you have set up in place in case you get a power cut, in case you know, your water mains is turned off for a couple of days, or say you had a problem with your central heating and didn't have any heating in-house and suddenly your heaters can't keep up with how cold everything is? What sort of backups have you got in place to prevent that sort of disaster happening? Let me know down below. So, further afield, still to do with conservation, Asia is finally starting to catch up a little bit in terms of conservation efforts. So there's a new roadmap that is going to see that basically by 2030, especially in Southeast Asia, that they are now going to be doing concise conservation efforts and protecting the necessary species and putting measures in place to protect those species. So out of all of the fish globally, freshwater fish, like the ones we keep in our aquariums, Southeast Asia has 30% of them. So if you think sort of compared to the Amazon rainforest, which probably has like 60 to 80% of them, that's a pretty large amount of the fish, probably about 60 a year. I wouldn't work out 30. And out of the 16 freshwater species that were declared completely extinct in 2020, which is quite a while ago now, actually, it's almost a couple of years. Probably got worse since then. But out of all of the 16 freshwater species that went extinct before 2020 due to population loss, habitat destruction, all that kind of thing, Southeast Asia has 15 of them. So 15 out of the 16 fish that went extinct in the last 10-20 years were in Southeast Asia. Why have they waited until now to do anything? Well, that's not the point. We won't dwell on the past. The main reason is basically habitat destruction. That is the main thing. I'll put the chart up here. So the main reason is things like habitat destruction, pollution, agricultural spills, that kind of thing. A lot of it is human caused. It's not necessarily global warming per se. Not quite like with the coral reefs. They're not, getting too hot. They're not, it's not really that kind of situation. It's more that we are literally destroying and chemically changing the environment around them where they naturally live. Farmland, all that kind of thing. As us humans, population sort of expands, we expand as well. Everybody's familiar with it. It's not clear cut because the problem is a lot of these habitats that I'm talking about where the fish are threatened, these habitats span over multiple countries, or they might also span over multiple sort of political borders as well. So it's not really very clear cut, saying we're going to do this and it's just one guy calling the shots, or one, Green Party or whatever calling the shots and saying this is what we're going to do from now on. There's a lot of different people and a lot of different political parties, countries, all that kind of thing that have to be on the same page. They might all have all different agendas and things. So that has been one of the limitations that's been sort of preventing things from being done. But this new roadmap is basically aiming to cover all of it and give the countries different incentives to protect the freshwater fish population. Another thing is some of the reasons aren't necessarily legal. With this, it's a little bit different to growing special plants in the forest, hidden away. It is gold mining, illegal gold mining. So I didn't actually know this, but when you mine gold, it actually releases really, really high amounts of mercury. And in Southeast Asia, a lot of the gold deposits, I think generally gold is around water. So there's illegal gold mining going on, which is then, obviously it's illegal, so they're probably not using the correct types of equipment, that kind of thing. I've got like episodes of Gold Rush in my head, but it is then releasing sort of undocumented, managed amounts of mercury into the river. They probably don't even know they're doing it because they're just there for the gold. So that is making freshwater habitats really, really toxic. Obviously, cracking down on illegal activities is even harder than trying to get lots of countries to agree on things like not chopping down trees, that kind of thing. So they've really got their work cut out for them. But really, really hope that the roadmap works and we start seeing improvements very, very soon. 2030 isn't too far away, and sort of in terms of conservation and making change, we should be able to see visible results by 2030 if they're actually going to do what they're saying they're going to do, basically. In terms of the aquarium hobby, a little bit like what we've seen in Brazil, the aquarium hobby is actually really beneficial for aquarium fish because it raises awareness and it makes the freshwater fish have an additional value. Obviously, consumerism, capitalism, all that kind of thing. We could go on and have billions of debates about this. However, the fact of the matter is, if we are allowing people to go out and collect fish from the wild, they're seeing them in their native habitat, they're able to see how many there are, and identify changes and things. If you blanket ban people from going out there, we don't know what's going on. So the aquarium trade hobby is actually an incentive for people to conserve the fish and to conserve habitats, because if they can set up some sort of sustainable system for these animals, so that, a little bit like what happens in Brazil, they have different quotas and things. Certain times of the year they have different quotas. They're not allowed to export the same amounts of fish all year round, because they know that if they overfish them, their livelihood dries up. So if we can create some sort of sustainable trade solution for the aquarium fish over in Southeast Asia, it can be really, really beneficial. So it's really, really good. This is going to boost the trade economy and basically encourage the locals and the governments to see more value in the legal trade of aquarium fish. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more profitable to illegal gold mining, which is going to be releasing mercury into the water. So, but it's really important to just bear in mind it is a multifaceted issue. There's lots and lots of different layers of it, as with anything. And yeah, they do have their work cut out for them before we start to see any kind of improvement. A little bit like cleaning up the UK's canals and stopping dumping wastewater in the oceans. Maybe I could do a whole fish news segment on everything the UK is doing wrong at the moment, but anyway, I digress. Back here in the UK, this is a little bit, I suppose this is more for those of us who are in the industry, those of you who are working in fish shops, maybe have fish shops, that kind of thing. But it's kind of relevant if you're interested in getting into the industry anyway. But basically, OATA, the Ornamental Aquatics Trade Association, they basically did a poll across lots and lots of fish shops across the UK about the animal activities licensing process. Now, I obviously have experience with this. It's pretty bang on, but basically, they found some pretty major issues. Primarily the lack of knowledge from the inspectors when they come out, don't know anything about fish. Inconsistent application of the standards, so they found that, you know, in one shop this standard could mean one thing, and then in another shop that could mean something else. That was worse across different counties as well. And also across different counties there are different prices. So in one county it could cost maybe £700, £800, and then in another county it could cost £300. So what OATA wants to do is encourage a fair and consistent application of these standards. It may mean a slight reformation of the standards, because some of them are really, really irrelevant to fish keeping in general, and sort of not really applicable. Might be fair enough if you're keeping dogs and cats, or doing a cattery or stables or something, but completely irrelevant if you're having fish. And they've also launched a new training course for inspectors to educate inspectors further on aquarium fish, which means that the standards for shops may be raised a little bit more. That can only really be a good thing. And it may mean that in the future, some shops that previously had a higher rating may get a lower rating, and so on and so forth. But if it's standardised and consistent across all of the councils, that would really be a positive outcome, to be honest. I have personally found, now bearing in mind, the people from the council are gorgeous, they're lovely, lovely people, and they are so, so helpful. I haven't ever had a problem with it, but I have found that even, obviously I haven't had a shop for very long, but I've actually just renewed mine. And I have found that even between the two inspections that I've had, and I also did another one when I worked for a different fish shop, because they just turned up one day. But anyway, I found that the standards that I met in the last inspection, absolutely nothing has changed, were not enough to meet the standards this time around with a different inspector, and I've had to do a lot more work. Now, I'm more than happy to do the work. I will do as much work as you want me to do, and I will polish things and rewrite things until the cows come home type thing. I am more than happy to work at it. However, if it was a big, big company, that could be a little bit problematic, because sometimes when it's a big overarching company or something, the policies aren't actually written by the person who's in the shop managing it day to day. And if the council was really, really busy or something, and if it was very, very close to the license renewal date, that could potentially result in them not having an active license and actually having to stop trade, which in this day and age is not very, very good. So it's definitely a very, very, very big issue in the UK fish trade world. The whole licensing activities business is just a little bit of it's a little bit all over the place, to be honest. However, I just want to make it very, very clear that it's absolutely no reflection on the councils themselves and the people who come out. They're honestly lovely, so super friendly, so down to earth. You'd think that like a licensing inspector from the council would be like really scary, but honestly, so lovely. It's just the awareness, I think, because a lot of people don't keep fish or just had a goldfish in their living room at some point. The awareness of, you know, things like water quality and different species and that kind of thing just kind of isn't there, which means that when they go in to judge the fish shops, sometimes you could genuinely just tell them anything. And if you sound like you know what you're talking about, because they don't know anything about fish, you could literally say anything, which sometimes I wonder if some people have. But anyway, that's really good news if it does start to bring about any sorts of changes. We'll just have to see, I guess. So speaking of OATA, they have very clearly washed their hands of, so in the last one I mentioned that we are getting Aqua, AQUAH, which is like an aquatics show that's happening. Interestingly, OATA has completely washed their hands of it. They have said that they are absolutely not involved, not associated with this Aqua aquatics trade show. It's very interesting. So it's the one that's due to run in April. It's very unusual for a company, well, it's not really a company, but obviously it's the Ornamental Aquatics Trade Association, so they are, you know, tip-top in terms of standards in terms of trade and that kind of thing. They're the people that manage all of it and make sure that everyone's doing it right. It's very unusual for them to explicitly state that they are not involved, which kind of for me rings a couple of alarm bells, and I know that it has for a couple of other people. I have spoken to a couple of very reputable people in the industry, and yeah, there's a lot of people who basically have their spidey senses tingling about it. There's a lot of different aspects of it that are raising suspicion, which I guess I'm going to have to sort of suspend disbelief until we're a little bit closer to the time. We may have to just sort of wait and see before we rush to book tickets and things. But yeah, maybe just do a little bit of a rummage on that and just see if you can find a little bit more information and just maybe educate yourself before you do rush to go get tickets. I really hope it goes ahead and it's more just because it's just a new thing and it's just people being a little bit like, oh, it's a new thing. Oh, I don't know this person. I don't know who's running this, because obviously the old one couldn't go ahead. So it's going to be different people. But yeah, hopefully the UK will eventually get their Fishkeeping convention. Hopefully. We might not, but hopefully we will. So, to finish off, it's been a really exciting month for me. Our fish food, Pleco Pops, has been reviewed in Practical Fishkeeping magazine, which is really exciting. And then in addition, I have also written a 6-page article on the genetics, hypothetical genetics of bristlenose plecos. So please do head out and grab a copy if you can. It's also obviously available on digital as well as in print. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how it came out. I am a writer. I actually did creative writing at university, and it's really cool to be like published and, you know, have my writing like legitimately in print. Not only because I love to write and obviously I was passionate about it, I did it at uni, but also because I get to write about fish, which I'm even more passionate about. So it's just really cool how the different skills and the different sort of journeys that I've taken through life have sort of started to come together for this moment. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. And yeah, please grab yourself a copy, support Practical Fishkeeping magazine if you can. It's always a really good read, always some really good writing from people, and really gorgeous photos to have a look at as well. Really good information in there. Definitely recommend it if you are a keen hobbyist. Even if you've been doing it for years and reading it for years, you always tend to find something new or learn something new anyway. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and maybe a comment down below. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on these sorts of issues. Maybe if you've got your article of Practical Fishkeeping, let me know what you think. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.